Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Thursday, October the 20th, 2016, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org, and this is our Thursday market update. Thank you all for being here.
The guys who want Trump, which I want to make it clear is not me. I don't want either of them. I think it's just a pathetic statement about our political system that we got to choose between a clown and a criminal.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like it was basically 90 minutes of debating nothing. I mean, they throw out a problem. Oh, the debt. Oh, well, and then they make Hillary makes excuses for why the debt doubled under Obama. And Trump says, well, yeah, here's the problem, but neither of them offer solutions.
Right.
Because there aren't any solutions.
Right.
Well, there are solutions, but it's solutions that's going to be painful for everyone. And actually, the best solution would be to tax the heck out of all these billionaires giving Hillary all this money and start using that toward the debt. But what really annoyed me, and this is what happens when the public doesn't see the facts, all right, is when Hillary Clinton says that, well, under my husband, we narrowed the deficit and we balanced the budget. And that was all accounting sleight of hand. I mean, Robert
Yes.
Rubin was really the guy who got in there as Secretary of Treasury and really revamped the way they manipulate the budget and the way they account for it. And I've looked this up. If you look during Clinton's time in office, when at the time, it's the late 90s, when supposedly the budget was balanced, the Treasury debt still went up.
Yes, it did.
But Americans who just listen to CNN or Fox News or read the Wall Street Journal, they don't see they don't see that fact. And so no one explains to them, hey, there's a big discrepancy here between the amount of money the U.S. has borrowed this year and the amount that they say they spent.
Well, and they also took a bunch.
When the amount that they borrowed is greater than what they're saying, the degree to which expenses exceeded revenues, then it means that there's some expenses that they're not accounting for or that they've taken, quote unquote, off the books.
And then didn't Clinton also raid the Social Security fund and basically leave it high and dry?
Yep, and actually that was another Robert Rubin brainchild.
Yep.
They issued debt, Treasury debt, to the Social Security Trust, and they take the cash out. They issue these special treasuries, and they don't count that as debt issued.
Right.
And so when you look at the debt number outstanding, there's no part of that in there that is an IOU to the Social Security Trust.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't account for theft.
Well, it basically is theft.
Yeah, it is.
During the Obama government last year, we got our budget deficit down to $450 billion or whatever he says it is. Well, Barack, maybe you somehow got through law school, but did you take any math classes? Because the amount of Treasury bonds outstanding last year went up by $1 trillion. So if your spending deficit is $450 billion, then explain where the $550 billion that your Treasury borrowed, where did that go? Is it just sitting somewhere? No, because the real spending deficit was the amount by which the Treasury debt went up. And this year, I think it's going to go up in the fiscal 2016. I think it's going up by something like 1.2 or 1.4 trillion. I mean, we're going to have, just using the amount borrowed metric to measure how much they spent versus how much they took in revenues, it's going to be a record deficit.
The way that the Federal Reserve note is designed is that the debt has to go up every year. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Or am I wrong in that?
Well, I don't know if that specifically has anything to do with whether or not the currency is fiat or whether the currency is in the form of a note. the reason the debt goes up is they spend more than they take in, and that's the point of a gold standard. A gold standard imposes discipline on the government that a central bank has no ability to, especially a central bank that's now as politicized as this one.
Yes.
I mean, it's always been politicized, but this one is probably the worst I've ever seen, including these Federal Reserve Board officials donating money to the Clinton campaign. I mean, quite honestly, you take a public position like that, you should be forbidden from contributing to any political campaign. And that brings up another point, and I can't believe the shrew brought it up, was Citizens United, because she said she's against the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which basically said that corporations are people and they can contribute as much money. Basically, took spending limits away from corporations to politicians, and it also allowed foreigners to contribute to politicians. And Hillary is by far the biggest beneficiary of Citizens United, since she's up there saying that she opposed it and she would want to get rid of it. Well, that's a bunch of BS.
Well, and that's how you get away with a lie, is that you own it. That's what they've been doing.
Well, and that's where Trump was pathetic last night, because if I was in his shoes, I would have said, "Wait a minute, you're the biggest beneficiary of Citizens United." Because what it is the Clinton Foundation is really her political slush fund, but it's disguised as a charity. And that's another fact check. Let's fact check this. She said 90% of the money that goes into the foundation is spent on charitable causes. That's a bunch of BS. And the New York Times ran a story which showed that 90% of the money goes to Clinton, her family, and the people who work for her.
It's just unbelievable.
It's amazing, but the public out there who wants to believe in Hillary, they lap up those lies and they become facts. It's right out of Orwell's playbook.
It really is.
It's really quite stunning. And the funniest thing to me is how, and no one's talking about this, because these WikiLeaks, thank God they're there, because they're exposing the truth. There's the truth laid out in plain sight for everyone.
Well, but Dave, those are from the Russians.
That and blames it on the Russians and Putin. Like, oh no, well, these don't count because Russia dropped them on the market. They come from Russia. Putin's trying to influence the election. Oh, okay. So anything that exposes the truth doesn't count. So let's just ignore all this. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And people hear of Russia and Putin and they freak out. Oh, and then they don't even think about what the real issue is here. Well, WikiLeaks, regardless of the source, and she was on there saying, well, I have 17 security, blah, blah, blah advisors who were telling us the source came from high inside the Kremlin. And that's a bunch of nonsense also.
Yep.
They don't know where the hacks came from.
They don't know where it came from. They're all lying.
Some people think it may have come in from inside the Clinton Foundation or the DNC. And guys who know where those leaks came from somehow mysteriously died.
Well, there's a shocker.
But it's just like, this is the same strategy the Nazis used. Blame it on the Jews. It's the same strategy that blame it on the Jews, blame it on the blacks, blame it on the Muslims. It's not her fault. She's allowed to break the law as long as no one exposes the truth, right? Especially if it's Russia.
It's all about Russia. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But I have to say this: Donald Trump did not do his job during that debate last night.
I agree.
I mean, he did not do his part. Period. And he left the door wide open for the mainstream media, which they have picked up all of the pieces that he left laying there conveniently for them, and they have been running with them all morning long. And the biggest one, him saying that he wouldn't support, that he wouldn't concede the loss or whatever, and unite the country, Sorry, but the country is not united by any stretch of the imagination at this point. And the fact of the matter is that they were saying that no one in the history of the election and going back to James Madison in 1800, blah blah blah. That's never happened. Well, does a lawsuit and the Supreme Court getting involved in the 2000 election between Gore and Bush, does that not count as I I don't accept this? I mean, uh, you know, what about that? What about that situation? Does that not count? But nobody is bringing that up, and no one's talking about that. And the the fact that Trump didn't, I appreciate him saying I'm gonna wait and see, take the wait and see approach. I mean, with the fact that the one thing that he said that I was so glad I couldn't believe it, I about fell out of my chair, was you shouldn't even be here. You shouldn't even have the privilege of running for president. That was the one thing that he said that was a huge black eye to her that she deserved, and that should have been repeated over and over and over and over and over, throughout all three of the debates. And it's just, I mean, because she shouldn't. I mean, with the so-called allegations against her, that the Podesta emails, not to mention the fact that the FBI has confirmed that she is in fact a criminal who is running for the president of the United States, is it's a joke. I mean, it's pathetic. I mean, it's almost hard to believe that we have a treasonous criminal running for president. I mean, I'm at a loss.
Well, but the problem is people who are going to vote for her don't see that. They think it's all conspiracy theory. And yes, the FBI has admitted that it's shown via those Podesta emails that she lied. She lied her through her teeth to the FBI.
Over and over again.
It doesn't matter though because Putin was the source of those emails, so they're
Oh,
not
that's
valid.
right. So darn
Sorry,
Russians.
Rory, they're not admissible in court.
That's right. It's those darn
Oh, and
Russians.
guess what? The meeting that my husband had when he was, went from his mistress's bedroom to the back of Loretta Lynch's plane and met with her for 39 minutes. That had nothing to do with my meeting in the FBI. I mean, the rig is in, and people who are supporting Hillary, they just don't want to look at it. Whatever. I've come and I want to move on unless you still have more to say about the debate, because I just think the whole spectacle is pathetic and it reflects really poorly on Americans in general.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, let's talk about gold, Dave. I mean,
well, yeah, I want
there's
to
a
move
lot going on.
because to me it's irrelevant who's going to be in office. The next administration is going to be even more awful than the last one, and the last one was even more awful than the Bush administration, which was worse than Clinton, which was worse than Bush 1.
Yes.
So it just keeps spiraling downhill. But yeah, let's pivot to gold.
Let's do.
Because actually, I think that I think the pullback is over, and I think they've thrown what they can at it, and it just doesn't want to go lower. And now India and China, their physical buying is kicking in big time. And if you notice, and this was even going on when gold was selling off, during the period of time when gold was selling off every day. Gold's going up every night during Asian trading hours, and that's the physical buying. And then as soon as the COMEX opens, although today it opened up at the COMEX and then got spanked right around 10 o'clock when the fraudulent existing home sales numbers were reported. But I think we bottomed here, and we're really seeing that action in the junior mining stocks. And I'm going to write a blog post about it later to explain why I, in support of this argument that the juniors are showing us, because it was the same thing back in January. The juniors got a bid before the large cap miners did. And that was sort of the predecessor to the big move we had that lasted through the end of July. And my reasoning for it is that I think that there's enough more sophisticated investors that are involved in this sector now than there was in the first stage, let's say, went from 2001 to 2011. And I think they realized that the greatest upside is in the juniors. And I think a lot of the big hedge fund money moves into the juniors when they think there's going to be a big move in the sector. And we saw that. We've been seeing that over the last week or so in the volumes on these juniors.
They're headed a lot higher,
A lot
and
higher.
and
A
I
lot.
think that between now and the end of the year, that it's going to be, it has the potential. I'll say it that way: the potential to be rather explosive with the election, with the uncertainty of everything that's going on, with the fact that our economy is doing terrible. Anybody that has half a brain knows that the S&P and the Dow Jones are nothing more than a front-loaded wealth effect that is now going through a digestive period. So where are you going to put your hedge fund money? Where are you going to put your institutional money? How are you going to protect your clients? How are you going to protect your client base? There's not a whole lot left. As you've pointed out numerous times, the only market that's more rigged than gold is oil, and why that's been a losing situation for well over a year now, or I shouldn't say maybe not losing, but it's incredibly risky. Most of these hedge funds and institutional funds are not allowed to put in physical gold into their funds. So the next best thing, go get the juniors, go get the large cap, go get the whatever gold stocks that their funds will allow to be added to their mix. So what you and I have just been discussing for the first 10 minutes of this show is the volatility that a maniac and a criminal bring to the so-called leadership of this country. That in itself says that I need to do something. I need to make some kind of change, and I need to make it right now, because in 20 days we're going to have major changes to the current status, to the current situation that we have. Or am I
See,
just way off base with that?
I think that's the perception that there's going to be major changes, and there really isn't. I don't think there's going to be major changes. I think it's just going to be more of the same. It's going to be, continued escalation in the ability of Wall Street and corporate America to rape the public. That's the only thing is going to change is that the rate of acceleration is going to increase.
Right, and I think that's what I apologize, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's what I was referring to. That when I say major changes coming, what's going to happen? What I see happening is that the carnage that we have been suffering through since 2008 is going to go exponential after the first of the year, possibly even before the end of this year. I think it's going to get just completely out of control as far as the maniacs that are in Washington D.C. and the criminals on Wall Street.
Right. It's gonna be open season under Clinton. It'll be open season, and I don't even know that it wouldn't be open season under Trump. Again, I don't think it matters. What I wanted to just slip in earlier is that I've actually reached a point where I kind of want Hillary to get elected, because I want all the people who supported her. They're going to get what they deserve, and they're not going to like what she puts on the table for them, or what she takes away from them that's on the table and gives it to her largest donors. And the one question that she didn't answer, this was great, when Trump said, well, look, why don't you take the 20 million, 25 million you got from Saudi Arabia and from other foreign sources, why don't you give it back?
Yes. Why don't you give it
back?
back?
We know she's a pay-to-play operator. So the only reason Saudi Arabia is giving her $25 million is so that they can play, so that they can have influence on decisions that are made that affect the middle class. But the idiots in this country don't understand that. The idiots are going to vote for her. And I want those idiots, I want them to have to wear that decision every day for the next 4 years.
The sad part is that the rest of us have to wear it as well. we have to deal with the consequences of those actions, even though we don't support any of it. I don't support any of it at this point. I mean, I'm becoming more like Gerald Celente or George Carlin, just a freaking political atheist. I mean, the whole thing is just a sham at this point. I mean, even at the local level, it's just gotten, oh my God, it's disgusting. But on gold, I want to stay with that for a minute because of what the ECB came out and did yesterday or said yesterday in regards to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and that they said that the ECB is encouraging the EU to make the laws and the regulations over cryptocurrencies much stronger. If you remember, Dave, at the beginning of the week, I'd written an article about getting gold out of the country and taking physical gold across the border. And one of the ideas was converting physical gold into cryptocurrency, move to the next country, and then reverse the process. Well, that just became much more risky of a proposition, and it just seems like that they're trying to put more stopgaps in place in order to push us towards the cashless society that's run by the central banks, like you and I discussed a month or so ago about the utility settlement coin, which is a central bank cryptocurrency. They're not going to allow, if that utility settlement coin cryptocurrency for the central banks gets put into place, forget it with Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies. They're not going to allow them. Period. So
I've
once,
never been a cryptocurrency advocate anyway.
well, I'm not a
I
fan either, but I mean, it just
Yeah,
leaves us even with better reasons to move into physical gold.
that's the only thing that people should be moving into. That and a good storage of non-perishable food and water.
And ammo.
Right. Yeah. No. I've never used Bitcoin. I never plan on using it. It's another thing to distract the public from the obvious, which is fiat currencies fail.
Every time.
They they eventually reach their intrinsic value zero. Thank you, Voltaire. And gold and silver, obviously you got to find a way to structure a precious metals backed currency with the size of the population and the way commerce is conducted now. But Bitcoin isn't the way to do it.
No, it's not. As far as gold and silver, you and I, obviously, we read a lot of various news sites and so forth, and get into the fringe of the conspiracy theories and the one world currency. Well, one world currency would be healthy at this point if that one world currency was gold, because that was the one world currency that created the greatest uh, economic boom the world has ever experienced back in the mid 1800s through the early 1900s. Gold
Yes.
was the one world currency that fueled that fire. So I'm all for a one world currency as long as that one world currency is called gold. I'm all for it. We need it.
Well, as J.P. Morgan said, gold is currency, everything else is credit.
There you have it. Well, that's a good ending spot right there.
Well, yes, and also again, I can't emphasize. And I'm actually looking at a graph of gold right now, and I actually haven't looked at a graph of gold since I had a long-term graph of gold since I had determined that this pullback's over and we're going higher from here. And you can see the chart itself; it looks really, really bullish. I mean, we broke out of a massive cup and handle formation. in November, December, February, and it looks like there's a small cup formation forming. And I think we're going to just move a lot higher from here.
Sounds good to me. We all wanted a lot higher. Dave, I guess we'll end it there with some positive news this time. I presume that the rubber bands, band-aids, and chewing gum is going to hold everything together over the weekend. And but if it don't, then so be it.
Well, if they don't, then there's always rainbows, unicorns, and cute kittens.
Exactly. uh, well, I guess we'll pick it up on Monday then, and I hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll talk with you soon.
See you then.